Hey, this is Nathan Crane, founder of the Panacea Community, and I appreciate you all for being here with us today. This summit is really about building skills for a more sustainable world and helping each of us realize how to live more self-reliant and in harmony with this incredible planet we live on. So today I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, who is Justin Rhodes. Justin's a permaculturist, film producer, author, and teacher. He helps folks learn to work with nature to produce their own sustenance so they can live a more abundant life. Justin trained under the highly accredited Geoff Lawton through his Permaculture Design course and has studied natural chicken care under popular author Pat Foremen. He founded Abundant Permaculture out of a love of teaching and the sustainable movement. Hey, Justin, thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm excited. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
Let's talk about permaculture, but specifically permaculture chickens. What is this whole thing you're doing with permaculture chickens?
Well, I started out with chickens, teaching that because I knew the most about that. I've been doing that for 10 years. Got into permaculture not terribly long ago, 2 or 3 years ago now. And it just made sense because chickens are it made sense as a starting point for me, but it also makes sense for starting point for other people because chickens tend to be a gateway to sustainability, as Pat Foreman would say, because they're so easy, they're so forgiving. You could get started easier, in my opinion, with chickens than garden, and chickens are more forgiving in that way. I mean, God forbid you lose a flock, you could go to Craigslist and replace your flock that same day and have chickens eggs the next morning. You can't quite do that with cabbage and other veggies and stuff like that. So it's a great starting point.
I like that. Chickens are like the gateway drug to
Yeah.
sustainability.
So,
And you don't need a whole lot of land either, right? I mean, you could have a
no,
little
absolutely not. I
piece of
mean,
lawn you could put them on.
shoot, even a hutch. I've heard of people keeping them in hutches inside their garage, and that is still 10 times better for them than what you would be getting at the store, the conditions of the store-bought chickens.
Right. So I think I just heard one of your kids in the background. So
Yeah,
that's a good, it's a good subject. I mean, how has it been working with your family and your kids and this whole experience with chickens
yeah.
and permaculture?
Yeah, you're gonna have to forgive that noise. They're running back. That's about as quiet as they can be. I'm hidden in the bedroom. Also serves as the office. You got to balance. Permaculture teaches you to balance things, but so does life. And so that's one reason I have my own business and I am running a farm is because of the kids. Why else am I doing this? And so I'm at home and I will work 20 hours on the farm and 20 hours on the business and the rest take it, and that's as a family. And then the rest of the time is doing the necessary chore type stuff, cooking, cleaning, just sort of sleeping, everything else. So that's why I do what I do. Run the online business and run the farm. So that these are home-based business too. So these are family-friendly things. We eat all three of our meals together. We homeschool. My wife and I balance by she gives me designated time. I give her designated time. She helps me with the business. She's doing customer service and other things. So I give her time for that. And then she gives me time for this type of stuff.
Right. Nice. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's my kids are in the next room as well, and there's nothing better than being able to stay home with your family and do what you love and do something meaningful. And I know we're going to get more into that conversation in a minute, but before we do, I'd love to hear some kind of concrete examples from this DVD you made, this Permaculture Chickens DVD. What are some things that people can do from this perspective in having chickens?
Okay. Well, what's going to immediately happen right from the start is they're going to realize that chickens don't just go here and the garden doesn't just go here, and you have these two separate operations, and you got to be a good gardener and you got to be a good chickener, and it's totally two separate things. Right from the get-go, you're going to realize that the garden and the chicken can work together. Just one real quick example. There's many that I go through. So one example would be that the chicken needs food and the garden needs fertilizer, and that's just one thing. And I don't know if you can see it yet, but already there's a connection there. If the chicken needs food, the garden can feed the chicken. But if the garden needs fertilizer, the chicken can provide that with its manure. So we've made a connection, and once you make that connection, you can feed the chicken from the garden. You see. So then permaculture will teach us that, hey, let's place these what you call elements together. Okay, these things of your farm. Let's put the chickens and the garden right next to each other. But I then take it I'll take it even further and take it into another concept and give you another example of people will learn how to creatively feed their chickens. I mean, 20 different ways from just on farm, and that's one of them. And by feeding your chickens from the garden, but then also, what about working them? I mean, using your chickens as a biological resource. Throw away the tiller. I got rid of my tiller years ago. Chickens are great shallow tillers. If you leave them in a spot long enough, it'll be bare ground. That could be a bad thing because nature abhors bare ground. But it can also be a good thing if you want to clear the area and you're maybe putting in some wood chips or hay or carbon material, something like that, to keep but they're still tilling and you're still covering the ground, and so you got your chickens to till for you. Okay, so I mean, I just listed one working example, and I also listed one permaculture example of making connections, feeding the chickens from the garden. And those are just two small examples from two chapters of the film. So, I mean, it's a 2.5 hour thing. There's no way I can relate much more than that in the time frame we have here. So,
Right.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah, well, and what we're really talking about here is closed loop production cycles, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
closing the loop so that there's no waste and everything becomes used and regenerative. I mean, if you're eating the eggs, eggs don't go to waste. If you are using your compost as a way to feed the chickens, then that doesn't go to waste, and you don't have to buy food. If you got enough compost, which we provide about 70% of our chicken food just from our kitchen scraps, through the compost. And then again, you can feed them from the garden. Yeah, like my chickens right now, they're in one of our small fruit orchards, and I'll move them out as soon as I get ready to start planting some more companion plants in there with the fruit trees we just planted last year.
Nice.
So closing that loop, and then the chickens, we don't eat meat in our family, so we feed the chickens to our dogs, so nothing goes to waste. It's a closed loop production cycle, and I think that's what for me, ultimate sustainability, ultimate self-reliance, the goal where I want to be, is that place where all of our loops are closed. Everything is a
Yeah.
closed circuit, so nothing goes to waste in our life. And I'm not close to it yet, but it's definitely a goal that I have.
Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about self-reliance from a self-empowerment kind of abundance entrepreneurial viewpoint. So, let us know, how were you able to create a living wage for you and your family in basically your first year of business?
The Scarlett O'Hara approach. I don't know if you've seen Gone with the Wind,
Mm-hmm.
but the main lady, Scarlett O'Hara, hits the bottom, and her family are hungry, and she vows that she will never find herself in that place again. I mean, she'll still kill and um, let's just say she'll steal and kill, so it doesn't happen again. All right. Now I'm not going to steal and kill, but I am. We did hit that pit. I mean, I was doing the homestead dream, man. I was and growing more than enough for ourselves and selling it so that we could fund the place. But then I got chronic. I began to suffer with chronic Lyme disease, slowed down physically, and then that also caused our bills to go up because we're having to eat healthy, but we eat healthier, and we can't grow it because of the physical limitations. I'm still able to work some on the farm, but it's really stacking up. And so then our bills are higher, and then working ability is less. So all of a sudden we're in this financial trouble. So it's like it was a must. It was like I must do this, or we're gonna sink. And a friend handed me the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Harris, a book, and that relit the entrepreneur fire in me. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, probably because I like freedom. Ultimately, it comes down to that. I worked
Right.
at Walmart when I was 16 for 6 weeks. I got that sorry paycheck, And everybody else was telling me what to do, and I had to come up with this time. And I said, forget this. I'm going to go mow grass. Gave my dad 20% of the cut, used his mowers, mowed grass, been an entrepreneur ever since. I didn't figure out till recently, but it is for freedom. Okay, I get people emailing me. I'm stuck, and Joel Salatin calls it the golden chains. People are stuck in their golden chains. I've not necessarily experienced that because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16, but and then transitioned that to the farm. But then when that became too physical for me, I had to transition to something. I said, the premise of the 4-hour work week is produce teaching products and that will help people. And for me, it needed to help people, but help the world and be something I could believe in and something I knew and something I wanted to even get better at, and that was chickens. And it's so good because now I'm at home, and what happens when the kids are sick or mom's sick? I don't have to call anybody. I can quit. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I can take off the day after that. We can go on a vacation for a week. We can run the business from a vacation. So there's just a lot of freedom there that I can ultimately then do what I want, which is spend time with my family and build my farm.
It's a good point, and it reminds me of something interesting. You've heard of evergreen business models, yeah?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, I learned or I taught myself or figured out, I guess, at 9 years old how to create an evergreen business because
Oh,
I
cool.
grew up in Montana, and I did the same thing. I was 9 years old. I went out and started mowing my neighbors' lawns for $20 a pop, and
Yeah.
or trade, like I'd get art or photography with famous photographers. I'd mow their lawns, things like that. But in the winter, we had 6 months of snow up there, and so in the winter you couldn't mow people's lawns. So I got the shovel and went out and said, "All right, now I'll shovel your driveway for $10, $20." So that's for those who don't know. An evergreen business is obviously like the evergreens, right? They
Yeah.
continue year round. Sometimes certain things that you have, like whether it's a product you design or a service that you offer, it may be seasonal. And so if it's only seasonal or only, people really need it half of the year or part of the year, then you got to figure out what things you can do for the other part of the season or the other part of the year to keep that going. And, like I said, just like you, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, and I never did well in jobs because jobs don't give you freedom. This whole false dream that we've been given that you work for 40 years and then you save enough for retirement and
Yeah.
then you're going to be happy. We see what that's doing to people, and it is a false dream. It's a false hope. And so, like you're doing, I think we've got to take back the control of our lives and do something about it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but I want to ask you because when I talk to people about this, they say, yeah, this is great, sounds good. I see you've been very successful, and I've actually failed way more in business than I've had success. I think I opened and closed 6 or 7 businesses before I had one that actually was successful, and but when I talk to people, they say, yeah, but you can do it, but I can't. It's too hard. It's too much money to start a business. It's too much this, too much that. I mean, I've got ideas about that, but I want to hear what you think about it. What you have to say for folks who think like that.
Well, I still haven't figured out if you're born with it or not. So this may be an entrepreneurship just might be a sense that you're born with. But there's a lot of big people that would disagree with that, and I hope that it's not true. I mean, Seth Godin, a big online marketer, says entrepreneurs are grown, not born, something like that. So you can grow that and nurture that. It's in us, anyone. For those people who are a little more timid and don't have, so maybe there's a different level of entrepreneurship born inside of somebody, some sort of pedigree, but anybody can become it and anybody can grow in any manner that they set their mind to, I think. So if that's something that you really want to do, and maybe they don't have the tolerance. I mean, entrepreneurs, like hardcore entrepreneurs, are gonna be able to make quick decisions and take a lot of risks, right? That traditionally, but it doesn't have to start like that. Like Bill Mollison says with permaculture, where do you start? You start right outside your door with growing things. Okay, so you start with 2 or 3 chickens, or you start with a pot in your windowsill, right? It's going to need to be the same thing with entrepreneur. The more timid you are, the easier you're going to have to start. And I would say that would be a side hustle. Okay. I coached call the guy the other day. He's working. I said, how much time do you have a week to give? I think it was like 1 hour. So, so then, but he's spending an hour and a half on the car. We found out that he was spending an hour and a half commute on the way there and on the way back. So guess what? Start listening to these business podcasts. Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn. Start listening to audiobooks. 4 Hour Work Week on audiobook. That's your time in the car. And then maybe on the way back, start voicing into an iPhone a blog post, talking, and then going home and then fixing those errors, and it's typed up for you. And then all of a sudden he piped up and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm just fooling around at lunch. I could type up a blog post at lunch." So if you really want it that bad enough, start with an hour. Find an hour somewhere a day and just start moving towards that. Get some direction. There's some good books like The 4 Hour Work Week, Launch by Nathan Barry, or not Launch by Nathan Barry. It's called Authority by Nathan Barry. And another really good one is Launch by Geoff Walker.
Right. Yeah, those are good books. I actually read The 4 Hour Work Week a number of years ago. And, I think it'll inspire people, but I don't think it's realistic for most people. I have not figured out how to work 4 hours a week and have the lifestyle that I have. But I know
No, that's a lie.
It's also not about that. It's
a lie. And they've done an article on Tim Ferriss himself, the 80-hour work week. So it's the what you come. So you're gonna have to weed that kind of stuff out. But I am honestly living the 20-hour work week. I'm making a good living on online business, doing this type of stuff on the phone for the 20 hours a week, and then the other 20 I'm out on the farm. But what you learn to do is stack also.
Right.
When you don't have this time, like I was telling that guy, my coaching client, get on the phone. Type up a blog by speaking it into your phone and then going home and then putting that out on paper. Also learning. Listening to podcasts and whatnot on the phone. So where can you stack things? For me, I'm not just on the farm doing my work. I'm vlogging it. I'm holding a camera and documenting that and putting it up on YouTube. Right. I mean, my wife edits it at night and putting it up on YouTube. I'm taking pictures and putting it up on Instagram as I go. So I'm stacking things.
Right. And that just becomes, more efficient with your time and smarter. And so let's talk about folks who are thinking to, want to take back control, become more self-reliant, independent in an entrepreneurial way. From my perspective, the first thing you got to figure out is what you're passionate about. I mean, what is it that you love to do? What is it that you enjoy to do? That also, this is a question I've come to ask, I find is just as important. What is it you love to do, but also benefits humanity and or the planet? It's like, for me, it's those two things. Because I could love to go out and, steal cars or blow up shit or whatever, But if it's not benefiting other people or the planet, you're not going to get very far with that sort of thing. So I find those two are really the first two things you got to figure out, right? Yeah. And then where do you go from there? What advice do you give folks?
Yeah, because you have to realize there's going to be hard times. Like last night, I was hopping on a webinar that I worked a week and a half on, and there was 100 people on there, and I could not get it to work. And I had to cancel, and we're going to have to reschedule. And for me to have the motivation to keep on going after just a little example like that, you're going to have to need motivation because you remember you're doing a side hustle here. So you're working when you're tired. You're working when you're supposed to be, when you could be doing nothing. So it's got to be something you're passionate about. And so from there, you get a niche. Like I didn't just pick farming. I didn't just pick chickens. I picked permaculture chickens. So you nicheify. My dad, 80-something years old, he's saying, that's never going to work. You're never going to sell that. There's not enough demand for that. Well, he doesn't even have an email address. He doesn't know the world is my marketplace. Okay? And my customers are all over the globe. So you figure out what you're passionate about and then pick something in that you can be that guy. Like I'm the permaculture chickens guy. I'm that. Okay? So you decide who you're going to be. There's the worm guy. There's the Geoff Lawton. Maybe he's the food forest guy. with the internet, you can be any guy or gal you want to be, and you don't think what's going to be holding you back. Oh, I'm not an expert. Well, read the best book about it. Read a couple of 2 articles about it. Phrase your own blog post or article or video, and you're 98% smarter or more of the expert than anybody else in that field. Okay, the world's information is at your fingertip. Hopefully you got a smartphone. I mean, I know that may be a touchy subject with some of you hardcore homestead people, but you got to realize the world's information's on there. Plant identification, plant dates, weather, compass, all these kinds of useful things, but then also things to market yourself as a business person. And the phone you threw away to get your recent smartphone just 20 years ago, it is now more computational power than President Bill Clinton had.
Well, and it's true. I find as I get more and more into sustainability and self-reliance that I'm walking 2 worlds. I'm walking this world of being involved in the social systems that we currently have, being involved in the global community with the internet, computers, the phones, the cameras. And I've decided to walk both worlds for a while. I don't know how long. My ultimate goal is to be 100% sustainable. And from a very honest perspective, from my perspective, you can't be 100% sustainable if we're using all this technology, because it's absolutely not sustainable. But while we have it, I'm at the thinking that let's use it for good. Let's use it to do good things, to help people, to learn, like you said, learn more. I mean, I learn something every day, and I reach hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people a week, and that's taken me years to get to that point. And I'm very grateful for that, because this is how we're creating this shift that's happening around the world, this movement of people getting back to the land or getting forward to living more, sustained on the land.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, while we have it, if you want that more freedom for yourself, I think one is you could go, get a piece of land and do everything just to live completely off grid, which is one option. Or the other is to figure out a way to really get yourself free, and that is entrepreneurism. I mean, you're never going to be free working for somebody else. I don't think that's possible, or not necessarily true. I mean, working with somebody versus working for them is also a little bit different. If you have a say in the business and you have a stake in it and you have a future with it at a deeper level,
Yeah. Well, we're just using technologies to forward ourselves into more sustainability. And when I was getting my Permaculture Design Certificate at Geoff Lawton's farm, I mentioned to one student there, I said, my granny, she was born in 1909, can remember the first car coming down the road. And we're in like 9th generation North Carolina. And then my dad can remember getting running water and electricity in the house. These big social movements, these big social changing technologies. And then I can remember getting, like, at my 20s, 30s, that kind of age, getting the internet for the first time and getting the smartphones for the first time, even cell phones and then smartphones. These are socially changing things. And then I said, I wonder what it's going to be for my sons. And he said, well, maybe we'll go back to horse-drawn carriages. Well, I hope so. I really do.
You need to bring your son in here and get him in here so we can give him a huge high five, because I love that, man.
Because that, and he was saying that as like, this would be a good thing. And I think so too, but I don't know how to drive a horse-drawn carriage, but I can go on YouTube and figure it out right now.
Right.
So that when the oil is gone, good. There's not nearly as many toxics in the world, because the last thing man needs is cheap energy, right? To destroy the world quicker. So now we're going to need to learn this stuff, right? And we might use technology to learn this stuff. How to grow food. We don't know that. That was lost. My dad forsook the farm. Your dad probably forsook the farm, or your grandpa did, and it was not passed down. So it's you and I's responsibility and to take the technologies we have and teach this very ancient stuff. The chicken's a chicken. It's not going to change. And so what I'm teaching people is precious. If they can hatch their own chickens, they've become sustainable. If they can breed a male and a female and hatch their own little baby chicks, let it all go to crap because they're going to be just fine. That's going to become the value. The person who knows how to hatch chicks, how to drive a horse wagon carrot, that's going to become the value. So pick a business that is going to have long-lasting, earth-changing value, whether there's technology or whether there's not.
Right, and you just touched a good point. It's like whatever you're going to do, that's why it is important to become an expert at it, to really want to master it. Because let's say in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, there isn't YouTube. You can go and learn whatever you want. People are going to come to you to learn these life skills that you have, and then that's that apprenticeship model that I so much feel that is going to be revived and even enhanced, in the future. Is where, that's where I learn the best, is I, interview people who are experts at what they do, and I listen and I learn. And then I think what's the most important piece is go out and do it. Because you can't be an expert at something if you don't have any real world practical experience. You can be a knowledgeable educator, but you can't be a true expert if you don't get the experience. So
That's
learn, keep learning, and keep doing, making mistakes, fail, get the experience. We lost like 3 sets of chickens before we figured it out, to coyotes and dogs and raccoons, you name it, before we figured out how to really keep them safe. And now we got an electric fence on the outside, and that's a solar-powered electric fence. And I built this super safe coop that's like double enforced, that's like goat wire on the inside and then chicken wire on the outside, so nothing's going to get in there, and they sleep way at the top. And it's so now they're safe. Now we don't lose any chickens, thank God. But we had to learn the hard way. So it's like, get that learning experience, get that failure, and wherever you're at in your business, if you have a business, is keep going, keep trying new things, keep experimenting, and keep moving towards your goal. Because I mean, from your experience and my experience, there's 2 people here that can tell you that you can do it no matter what you're going through.
And I would say that person, hopefully, they're publishing what they're learning as they go. Don't think that one day you're going to feel like an expert, because actually the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
So be publishing as you go. You learned a lot through those tragedies. And publishing, even what you learned or what not to do, is going to build your audience. And when I say publish, I mean publish on a blog post, on a YouTube video, on a podcast. That would be one good way to, you build and express things. Like when you're interviewing people, you're being associated at that level, but you're also learning, etc. So I mean, publish some way. If you like voice talk, that'd be a podcast. If you like shooting yourself on video. If you like writing, that's a blog. Publish as you go and start now, and you begin to build that audience. Hopefully you're collecting emails and building up your audience through emails and things like that. And then you have somebody that they're following, they respect you, they begin to trust you, and then they begin to want more from you. Listen to them, you listen to their requests, you ask them, what's your number one struggle, things like that. And you don't go around, how do I make more money? Because there's plenty of money out there. Go to the mall and you'll see a lot of money floating around. What you need to ask is, how can I add more value? And so you add value for these people, and they're happy to contribute, and they invest. And then when somebody invests, they feel mentally, psychologically obligated, inclined to actually act on that. Most of my information is for free, but the people who actually buy, the minority, like 96%, 95% of my people are consuming my content for free, but those 5% who actually bought my product are making 95% of the change. You know what I'm saying? They're making 95% of the difference. Those are the difference makers.
Right. Now, I want to just kind of touch on something you said a minute ago, which I found to be like probably the most valuable thing that I do with any of my businesses is, and I learned this the hard way, was, I've always cared when I've been in business, is like I've always cared about people, helping people some way, but I recognized my intentions were backwards. I was trying to figure out, how do I make more money? How do I get the money? We need money now. I got to pay the rent. Need to feed myself, my family. But I was always struggling financially. And then the second intention was, all right, how do we help people make it better, support them? I had this awakening at one point that said, dude, you need to switch your intentions. You need to focus first on how do I help people? Like you said, how do I give value? How do I be of service the most? And then figure out how to make money at it later. And when I switched that in my in the business I opened maybe 5 years ago now, I think, the Panacea community, that's what it is. Started as a free online community with no specific business plan or intention to make a bunch of money from it. But I knew at some point I would, figure out a way to make it financially sustainable for myself as well. And so started free and then eventually turned into a small income source, and then, a little bit more until, now we have 4 companies and a nonprofit and on board of directors of different organizations and festivals and books and publishing and all these things. But it started with that first intention. How do I be of service? How do I give more value? How do I help people? And then figure out how to make money. You don't have to get into something with this huge business plan and this huge, oh, we're going to make $1 million and all this. It's like, no, just follow your heart, do what you love. And then, like you said, read some books, take some classes, learn business so that you can also make it financially sustainable. So what are some of those resources you use to kind of, tune you up in terms of business acumen and keep your business going?
Yes. I listen to the Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn. That's a podcast. That would be probably my base. And, I'm listening to that in the car when I'm driving. So stacking options there. And then I subscribe to an email list from this guy named Brian Harris. He's got really actionable how-to blog posts in business. And his website is videofruit.com. videofruit.com, and then Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income podcast can be found at smartpassiveincome.com, which I imagine you'll link in the show notes. And from those two, you're gonna find others, and most likely, if they trust them, I found that they've offered pretty good tips. Like people come on that Smart Passive Income and give really good ideas that I've implemented and have really made a big difference in my business, because I didn't know the online business world, but those guys do. And they give great examples and great how-to stuff. So
let's do a quick recap. One is, learn to be passionate about or be passionate about what it is that you want to do in business, right? Have a passion, have a love, have a desire for it. What would you say the next thing is?
Then the next thing would be to learn actionable steps to help make that a reality into a business. So it's important that you don't think, oh, this is a good idea, I'll try it. You can do some of that, but like when I went to launch my film, I had did well on Kickstarter, but I had read like 3 articles and a book on how to do well at Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is where you can raise money when you don't have it to produce something in the future. Like, do you guys want this? Then back this project and I'll make it. And so that's a pretty cool model. And then when I went into the release of the film, how am I going to sell this? I had a lot of different ideas on how I would market it. But then I found out about that book, Launch by Geoff Walker. I went and picked it up at the library. It was step-by-step plans. I followed it to the T. And the next I put all my everything into that film. And the next week after that, we have maxed out credit cards, just to be honest with you. And I didn't know where we were done. I don't know how we were going to buy any food the next week. Well, we went to the launch following this formula, and all of a sudden, we got money in the bank. Okay, and all of a sudden, we can pay off credit card. We're climbing out of that too. That's not self-sustainable. Credit card debts. So that's what business will do to you too. It'll get you out of debt. A lot of people say, "Oh, save money." No, I say save time and build a business. That's the quickest way to get out of debt, even if it's a side hustle. Even if you're in debt at your job, find that hour. So find that plan that you can stick to. That would be the second thing for sure.
And so as part of that too, what you said was, and we briefly touched on earlier, is build your community, build your tribe, and the way that you're talking about doing it, which is the way that most of us do it, is really connect with what people want and need and desire. Share your skill sets and do it for free. Put up a
Yep.
website, put up a blog, do a YouTube channel, and just start putting out good content that really helps people. And then have a place where people can sign up on your email list, on your website, and they can join your newsletter and put out a good newsletter each week.
Hmm.
Once a week, put out good content, good videos, all free stuff, because what you're doing is you're helping people, you're giving value. People are going to sign up for your newsletter for free. And I was reading, you said you started with 7 people on your email list.
Yeah.
Now you have like over 17,000.
Yeah. It's
Same,
22,000 now.
22,000. I'm
Yeah.
sure by the time this goes out,
It's going to be
it'll be a
about
lot more.
26 or 30,000. Yeah, by then.
And same thing with us. We started with 5 years ago. We had 5 people in a little workshop room in San Diego. That was our first. We did a meetup group. I did meetup groups in 4 states around the country. I had other people hosted them. We started with 5 people, and 5 years later we have 60,000, and another 20,
Nice.
30,000 on social media. And these are all people that we've built this long-term relationship over the last few years of providing good quality content to help their lives. So you got to build your community base. And like you said, you got to build your business acumen, figure out how to get your product out there, and what else?
So you've built your audience, you've gotten your product out there. You then maintain. You find some maintenance plan. You might shift into another business or to another niche, or you might say, for me, I'm in a decision. Am I gonna be the permaculture? I call myself the permaculture and chicken ninja master. Am I gonna be that the rest of my
Nice.
life, or do I need to shift and maybe be this smaller scale homesteading guy or
Permaculture sheep.
sustainable? Yeah,
Permaculture sheep ninja
yeah. Do I
guy.
want to be the shepherd? Is that what I want to be? I don't think there's any authoritative shepherd. Maybe somebody listening to this will be the shepherd, man. That would be cool. So you got to then figure out. It's always that and then the permaculture chicken. Maybe I turn it into a course, or maybe I just slightly shift and add a little bit more about gardening or something like that. To where maybe if I could teach people how to grow all their own veggies and chicken, those are 2 really starting points. Do I want to be for beginners? Do I want to be for experts? So then you just begin, and you also that process will also be, I think, then you shift into communicating with your audience, and letting them also help drive. You don't want them to drive you somewhere you don't want to go. You want to still be a leader and still be passionate about something, but still listening to the needs of your audience, and continually adding value. Like permaculture chickens can have an upgrade next year based on the feedback I've gotten of how could it be better, what did you need. Maybe it would probably more likely be a course because it's so informative, it's so much information. So just keep getting better at what you're doing or making a shift. And starting all over again.
And I guess finally, I would say don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to take big risks. Sometimes big risks are exactly what you need to get to that next level of success. Trust me, I've committed to hundreds of thousands of dollars of commitments with maybe $500 in the bank. And I'm not telling everybody to go out there and do it, but I believe so strongly in my heart that I could make it happen, that I was going to make it happen, that I did. And that's not always. I would say start smaller than that. If you got to commit to an amount of something. But if you're passionate about it, you'll figure out a way. You'll figure out a way. And I know there's so many more tools and resources that you have to share, and so do I. We obviously don't have time in this conversation, but I do want to give your website to folks so they can get in touch with you and connect with you, check out your DVD and your programs. So that's abundantpermaculture.com, and share with us a few of the things that folks can connect with their site.
If you just go to that website, abundantpermaculture.com, there's a page there called Film Permaculture Chickens. You can go there and get a free video series It's like 30 to 40 minutes total. You join my list, you get the free videos, no obligation to buy, but then later we'll give you the opportunity to invest in my film, Permaculture Chickens, which will teach you how to raise chickens naturally from hatching to the plate. But then you can also go on there and get on my sustainable entrepreneurs list if you're interested in more of this business type stuff. You can get How I Succeeded on Kickstarter. I'll give you that ebook. You can get my 20-hour work week format and the tools I use for that and all that stuff. And then you can also go to my page and read all my blogs. If you have more time than money and want to get started with chickens, just go through all my blogs. And then there's a thing called Vlog with a V as in Victor. I'm shooting now 5 vlogs a day and documenting our homestead lifestyle, the ups and downs. I mean, even the chicken master gets a fat hen. I mean, we had a chicken that was going down because she was too fat. I mean, and that happened. Like, that shouldn't happen to me, but it did. So even stuff, my chickens still get out and I'm still clipping wings. So it's that journey. It's a little more dramatic reality TV type stuff. It's like Happy Family meets reality TV meets abundant like permaculture homesteading. So for somebody who's got enough information and they just want to have some fun while they're drinking their morning coffee, then maybe the blog's for you. So
Awesome.
those are my 3 major things right now.
AbundantPermaculture.com. I've got a couple other websites to share with folks. The other is the self-reliance summit.com/upgrade. So if you missed any of these interviews during the free broadcast period, you can own them. You can buy the entire set. You can watch them again and again and really get the hands-on information we're covering in these interviews. So I encourage you all to do that as well. It's the self-reliancesummit.com/upgrade, and should be links somewhere on this page that you can click, probably below or to the side somewhere. So. And finally, if you really want hands-on training, you really want to be a part of a community of people that are very interested in creating a better planet, then come to Unify Fest. Unify Fest is a 4-day transformational festival happening in Santa Fe, New Mexico in September. And it's a hands-on workshop. There's permaculture, there's basket weaving, there's medicine making, there's foraging, as well as keynote presentations, there's music, there's yoga, there's ceremony, there's indigenous leaders. It's really a forward to the sustainable land transformational festival experience about unifying humanity. So check out unifyfest.com. Would love to see you there. And Justin, hey man, this has been great. It's been wonderful connecting with you and hearing all this great wisdom you have to share. And I appreciate you for being here, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time on the Self-Reliance Summit.